Hi, everybody. It's just dark. It feels like it's dark.
It's super dark. We're cozy and intimate. Do you want to put that lamp on?
No, it's fine. It comes out fine on video.
Scary movie.
Scary
hi, Alonso, Matt, and Christy. Breakfast all day. I'm back. And,
we've all not been in the same room together for like a month.
Right, that's right, because you were gone.
I was on vacation. I was in Montreal and Boston, and then you were at Venice, and you missed my birthday, which is fine.
I wrote a gushy thing about you.
You did. It was adorable.
On
no,
Facebook.
I loved it. Matt, you didn't do that. Where's my gushy thing from you?
Yeah.
I saw you. I saw you and didn't embarrass you by saying anything about your birthday.
Because you didn't know.
No, I forgot.
One never mentions a lady's age.
I'm 47.
Unless it's a lady. Anyway, so it's chapter... It chapter 2. I find it fascinating that they figured out that this period of the year that is traditionally thought of as a wash, they were like, nah, let's just take it over. No one cares about the weekend after Labor Day. Nothing ever opens the weekend after Labor Day. Let's just make $1 gajillion the weekend after Labor Day.
It's in between summer and all the awards festival movies coming out.
Yes.
Also, there's no punctuation in the title. It's not it
colon
chapter 2.
It's just it chapter 2.
Right. It's like Frankenstein describing the second part of a book. It chapter 2.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if y'all saw my tweet where I had hashtag it chapter 2 and I had a picture of Marsha Mason and James Caan.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah. Google
that's
it.
for all you older kids out there.
Anyway,
I understood that joke.
So this is the follow up to It, which is now It chapter 1.
It is the highest grossing horror movie ever.
The first It?
The original It.
Wow. Well, not adjusted for inflation, but still, that's crazy.
No, well, I guess. Now I'm going to look that up. Now that I've bandied about that stat, I've got to give you the actual number.
So we return to Derry 27 years later, where apparently Pennywise is not as dead as they thought. And Mike, who was the only one who stayed behind, and remembers everything, calls the grown-up losers and gets them all to come back to town. Well, almost all. And they have to reopen childhood wounds and reconnect with each other to finally put the kibosh on the killer clown from outer space? ?
Is he from outer space?
I don't know what the hell he is.
I don't want to have to understand him, because understanding him makes him real.
It's
he's just creepy.
It's like people say about the Joker. The fact that he has no actual origin story is what makes him more interesting.
No, wasn't he dipped in a vat of acid?
Well,
and that's why his face ended up like that.
It was an ever-changing thing, and that was part of the shtick, was that they never settled on one origin story.
Well, we're gonna have another one when the Joaquin Phoenix version comes out.
Yes, which we'll talk. If you're a brunch supporter, if you are on our Patreon, I'll be talking about the movies I saw at Venice this year, including Joker. So patreon.com/bfastallday. So, all right, chapter 2. What are our thoughts?
It's kind of a big sprawling mess, but with like intermittent moments of greatness, right?
That's fair.
It's nearly 3 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, the book is like nearly 1,200 pages long, and this is the second half of it.
It's nearly 3 hours, and you can tell they're still like trying to cram in as much as they can. It's not there's not a moment of this movie that feels like leisurely.
Right. It suffers.
We've got to get in there,
and especially at the end. Like the end really suffers the same way Return of the King does. Like it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like every time, like after the climax of the movie, just like, oh, okay, let's say goodbye. Let's do another goodbye. Let's do another goodbye. Oh wait, we need to do it. Oh, but it's like leaving the party and you have to say goodbye to everyone and you never actually leave.
And that's
just ghost.
It's like Brexit.
Well, that's endemic of this problem of the film, though, which is that like you have all these characters and then they each have to have their moment of the thing. So like there's a whole part in the middle where Mike tells them that they've all left behind some sort of totem of the past.
Right. Everybody go on their fetch quest.
But they have to go find them. And then you have to, so then it's like, all right, so Jessica Chastain goes and does her thing and you've seen it in the teaser trailer. And then, Bill Hader has to go do his thing. And then you're like, oh, God, we're going to have to sit here while like 5 different people all have their flashbacks.
And then within those individual quests, you have new scenes with the young kids as these characters.
Yes.
And so like you're like doubling up, and it's great to see all of them again. It's great to see Finn Wolfhard, and it's great to see Sophia Lillis, all of them. But, so you can't just have Jessica Chastain going to the apartment. you also have a memory of her as a child. And so
Yes.
every single one of them has that kind of structure. And not only does that drag out the running time and, drag out the drama, but it also kind of saps the energy because so much of what is fun here is watching them all reconnect. That
Yes.
scene in the Chinese restaurant
Yes.
is maybe my favorite in the whole movie for a couple of reasons. It's so much fun to watch just that effortless chemistry. And the cast has been chosen so perfectly for each adult actor to correspond with the kid. Sometimes they really, really look like them. Like Jack Renstone looks exactly like Jack Dylan Grazer, who is Richie. No, Eddie.
Yeah.
And Jessica Chastain is great. Bill
Yes.
didn't Finn Wolfhard pick Bill Hader to play older him?
Oh, funny.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So those are all perfect, and they're tremendous. I mean, they have great chemistry. So that's all fun, and then that ends with this chilling, like elegant bit of suspense. The way that scene plays out.
Yeah.
So when they're together, it's a lot of fun.
When they're separate, though, it
takes a long time.
It's interesting, but it's just also the knowledge that the way this thing is edited, like, oh, okay, nothing is going to happen until we get through the next 5 scenes that have to happen now. It's like he could have maybe intercut between them, but instead, if you do them in a row, it's like it's like when you're at one of those long banquets and you're sort of mentally like scratching off the speakers as they go.
Also, the whole, and I know it's in the book, but the whole Native American subplot is so absurd and it feels like such a distraction that I wonder whether they could have like excised it entirely.
Well, I'm a little bit. I think I'm fairly more forgiving of this movie, partly because of kind of the audacity that the director goes. I mean, like he's swinging for the fences here, and I think that he balances a fair amount of character drama with some really, really scary stuff. And I was okay. I was initially really concerned about the running time, and for the most part, I was actually okay with it. There's enough good going on in, I thought, most of the individual little quest scenes that I thought those were, some of them were absolutely terrifying. You're right, though. The rhythm and kind of the energy of it is a little bit all over the place. I can't help but wonder if this would have been better off as a limited series, right?
Sure.
Like do this
Yeah.
like give it 6 hours, right?
Right.
Give it 6 hours.
Give each person an episode.
I mean, although actually, I'm complaining about something that's actually only 5, right? Between the first one and this one, like we're talking probably almost 6 hours. Like it probably needs 8 hours.
That's true. Yeah.
The first one was 2 hours and 15.
Right.
yeah.
So we're
Give it
probably
9 hours.
Right. Like give it 8 or 9 hours. Let some of that breathe a little bit more. Make it as epic as the book treats it. But there's a lot really interesting stuff going on. With some of the quests, like when Jessica Chastain's character goes back to her childhood home, I thought that scene was terrific.
Oh, yeah.
That scene was terrifying. And
again, it was
like
in the first trailer.
Right. No,
But
I understand.
expertly
Like,
paced.
Right.
Yeah.
There's some really fun stuff going on in there, and then it's terrifying. And you get to see something that I think in a lot of cases you don't necessarily get to see in a lot of scary movies, in that, like, oh, we're going to show you this whole monster and it's going to be on screen for a long time and you're just going to get to see it. We're not going to hide anything. We're not going to wait till the end of the movie to reveal something. Like, you're going to get to see stuff, and it's not going to lose any of its power. So I actually I was a lot happier with the balance of it being able to do kind of the character development and the drama of these characters dealing with their past issues as well as the scariness in it.
I wish they had trusted the character development stuff more, because I think that's the most interesting stuff. And by the time you get to the scary stuff, so much of it is just like CG stuff, which is fine, and some of it is scary, but it just sort of feels like this is not as interesting as these characters and how they interact with each other, and the shared trauma that they're all processing. Like this novel and the films are this sort of metaphor about childhood trauma and how it manifests in adulthood, and how the things that we block out and the things that we eventually have to face and all of that stuff. And I just kind of wish that it didn't have to be all like, like, I mean, obviously you have to have some of that, but like, I think trust in the sort of psychological aspects of it more, especially when you've got actors this good doing it.
Right. And the terrifying stuff is of a few varieties. And so once you've seen them all once, you realize that Pennywise tends to repeat himself in terms of like the ways in which he manifests himself for each of them, depending on what their fear is. Right. It's of a few varieties. We should mention that Andy Muschietti directed this, and
Yes.
he did the first one too. And so there's big, like, muscular, like, visual craft on display in terms of the monster stuff, in terms of the bigger set pieces. But there's also really elegant, gorgeous transitions. Like early on when they're visiting each character as an adult, the way, like the seamless, smooth way he'll go from one character to the next. I was like, that was cool.
Yeah,
that was pretty.
There are some clever. Without getting into spoilers,
Yeah.
can we talk about the weird gayness of this movie?
Okay, so I have not read the book, I will admit. Is there not a gay bashing in the book?
The gay bashing is in the book.
Okay.
It is in the book, and that's fine, and whatever. But then they make the decision to make one of the major characters gay who wasn't in the book, but they do it in that sort of like, we're trying to get something past the production code kind of way, where it's so subtle and like almost whispered that if you aren't paying attention, I'm sure there are viewers who left going, what? That was a thing? I didn't even notice. But like, you really have to look for it. I'm like,
well, I thought it was fairly obvious. I mean, I thought it was fairly obvious about a character that doesn't want to admit to it.
yeah, I guess, but it just
It feels very wedged in.
It felt wedged in. It felt like we're a little embarrassed about this, and it's like, well, but you made it up. Why is it even here? Then, like, it felt like they could have committed to it more, and they could have made it mean something more. I found it just kind of odd. I wasn't like offended. I was just sort of like, what are we doing here and why?
Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah. So that was just my thing. The gay bashing, whatever, that is in the book, and that does sort of signal the return of Pennywise. That's Xavier Dolan, by the way.
I did not realize that as I was watching it. Yeah, there are some cameos here. There are some cameos here that we should just say there are cameos. Yeah. I don't want to because they're fun to discover.
Right. One of them is that person's, I think, best cameo that they've done. Yeah, and I think as much as the ending drags on, I think that the change that's happened in this ending from where the book is, I think it's an improvement.
Yeah, no, and I think it actually fits the themes that I was talking about earlier better. The whole the trauma stuff. I think it's more resonant. That is an improvement for sure.
And it uses the idea of nostalgia in a way that's very effective. And yes, it is in superficial ways, like a Lost Boys poster in the background, or Word Up by Cameo playing while they're in their little kid clubhouse. But also just the idea of being yanked back to that place that formed you. Yeah. And you can go as far as you think you can go, and you can be as accomplished as you think you can be, but you are still that insecure, nerdy 13-year-old. Like they get at that in ways that are very true.
And the other thing too is when you get together with people from that point in your life, you slip back into those roles relatively quickly that you wouldn't otherwise be doing.
Right.
Totally.
And I like that the movie covered that and the actors inhabited that really well.
We haven't said the name Bill Skarsgård yet.
No, I thought he's
terrific. Pennywise, and
he's great.
And what is so cool is that you really, really miss him when he's gone. Yeah. But he finds all these avenues into this character, and he finds that sweet spot over and over again of being like terrifying and hilarious at the same time. Like it is like deeply chilling. The scenes with the little kids, especially, are deeply, deeply disturbing. Yeah. But also, he's so funny. And then there's a scene where Bill Hader makes fun of him, which is perfect because he does incredible impressions. But he has like a cute little Pennywise bit. So he is like this. You can never have enough of him, I don't think.
I have seen criticisms that basically it's more interesting to watch children grapple with this stuff than it is to watch adults. And that's just a thing that's sort of baked into like this and the miniseries and the novel even, that there's something about adolescents taking on this sort of primal fear and threat to themselves that just is in itself more interesting than watching grown-ups. You think is that a fair cop, you think? Or
no, and a lot of that is because the actors are so good. It's just James McAvoy. It's just an incredible cast, and so they can take this material and elevate it into something deeply moving and something that's more than just a fright fest. So I think watching them revert to their adolescent selves does that. It sort of speaks to that phenomenon while also, seeing it through the prism of who you have become, how that shapes you. I don't know.
Fair enough.
That's what I would say.
All right.
What do I know? So yeah, I guess we'll have another one that takes place in the year 2040.
Are we getting
I don't know.
Are we getting another one?
No, I don't think.
No.
It will be 2043.
Is it?
I guess so.
89, 2016.
Well, it's every 27 years.
Every 27
Yeah,
years.
2043.
Well, it's math. So we're going to have another one of them like when they're elderly and
If
in their
Stephen
60s.
King's head in a jar writes one,
All right.
So I'm saying a 6.8. I sort of feel like it's worth seeing, but it's kind of a spectacular mess.
Yeah, I give it a 6. I think there are moments that are terrific and there are really good performances, but I found there were big chunks of it I thought were just a slog.
I give it an 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also, I have mentioned, I'm not going to say what song it is, but there's one song choice, like an early 80s song choice that kind of comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, why was that chosen? There's like a blast of an 80s song at a moment of great tension and fear. And I'm like, why? But it's an example, Matt, of what you were saying about really going for it.
Yeah.
He goes for it in ways that are big and wild and weird. And I admire that so much, even though it doesn't necessarily always work. Anyway, our number is 6.9. It's at 66% on the tomato meter. If you care about these things.
Yes. All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching. Won't you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at BeFastAllDay, and visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We talk about trailers. We do TV recaps, movie news, other goodies like that. And we're actually about to do a 70s cult classic that our Patreon supporters voted on. So yeah, you get to tell us what to do sometimes even. So check it out. Thanks for watching.
Bye.